Thank you all for coming. It's 9:20, so we're going to try to finish by around 9:30. This week, I hope it's okay, I'm going to say a few words about trying to be brief. So we learned a lot about Hilchot Talmud Torah. The very end, I'm sure all of you got up to it, talks about the mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah. And the mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah, it's a pasuk in the Torah, but the Gemara basically has three sources which talk about what does this mitzvah entail. And the Gemara Sanhedrin states that even if one inherits a Sefer Torah, you nevertheless have the obligation to write it yourself. Which sounds like that there's the mitzvah isn't to own a Sefer Torah, but you have to write it, actually, because even if you inherit it, you still have to write it. The Gemara Menachos states that if you correct one letter in the Torah, it's as if you wrote the entire Sefer Torah. Again, you don't have to own the Sefer Torah after you wrote it, but even one letter is fine. And then finally, there's another Gemara Menachos that says if someone buys a Sefer Torah, if someone buys a Sefer Torah from the marketplace, it's as if he grabbed a mitzvah from the marketplace. And that Gemara is a little, it's a little confusing because it can go one of two ways. Grab a Sefer Torah from the marketplace, okay, you got a mitzvah from the marketplace, but at least you got a mitzvah. On the other hand, you grab a mitzvah from the marketplace, it doesn't sound like a good thing. Like, you're not supposed to do your mitzvahs by grabbing them. And that's Machlokas Rashi and the Rambam. The Rashi says that, what does this mean? That you did the mitzvah, you grabbed the mitzvah in the marketplace, but this isn't the ideal way to do it. What you should have done was you should have written it yourself. The Rambam just leaves that out. He says that the mitzvah is to he leaves that part out. So therefore, it sounds like the Rambam that the mitzvah is just to write a Sefer Torah, and you shouldn't necessarily buy it to own it. What's interesting is the Ramah's opinion on this. The Ramah says that. The Rosh's opinion on this is very interesting. He says that the mitzvah these days isn't necessarily to write a Sefer Torah by itself, but rather to write Hilchos of Mishnayos, Gemara, and other commentaries on that. So the question arises, like, well, what does he mean by anything? So does he think that the mitzvah is to buy or to write? Because on the one hand, he says you don't necessarily have to write a Sefer Torah. But on the other hand, he says later, he says you do have to write these Gemaras and Mishnayos. But on the other hand, he says that it's usher to sell these. He says just like if you own a Sefer Torah, you can only sell it for like Pidyon Shvuim or something like that. If the Rosh says if you own Gemaros and Mishnayos that you wrote, you're not allowed to sell them unless there's a big need. He says for education or to get married. So what does the Rosh hold? Does the Rosh hold that the mitzvah is to buy or to write? And it's possible that you could conclude that the Rosh thinks that the mitzvah is sort of some combination of this, that you have to write a Sefer Torah, you have to write Torah literature, and the mitzvah really is to own Torah literature that you wrote. So, for example, how would you be Mekayim this mitzvah for the Rosh? You'd be maybe writing your own commentaries you go through to Hillim and you write your own commentaries on the side, and you keep that in your house because these are your commentaries. The Rosh would say this is how you could be Mekayim the mitzvah. And really, there's these two different ways of looking at the mitzvah, to write or buy. But what's really the difference? Obviously, you could write a Sefer Torah, you could write one letter and maybe have the mitzvah, or maybe you could just buy a stake in a Sefer Torah. Maybe that's good enough. So it almost could be the same thing. So what might be the practical difference between the two? So Rav Avram Skor in the Torah Chaim discusses one case where he says that if you write your own Sefer Torah, you write it from scratch, and then you decide to donate it to a shul, which happens a lot. People buy a Sefer Torah or they get it, written by a sofer, and then they donate it to the shul. So are you Yossi the Mitzvah writing a Sefer Torah? You wrote it, but now you don't own it. So it's possible, according to those who say that you have to own a Sefer Torah, that you're not Mekayim the Mitzvah. You have to write another one. Or you have to keep it in your house. A second nafkamina, the Minchas Chinuch discusses when is the time frame for this mitzvah. If the mitzvah is to write a Sefer Torah, you got to do it once in your life. You write it, you're done. It could be you're 99, about to pass away. All right, there's a concept of Zuzah Maktimin, but you wrote it, so you're not going to have to write two mitzvahs, two Torahs in your life. Great, but the mitzvah is to own the Sefer Torah, then when should you own it? Second year bar mitzvah. 13, you should already have a Sefer Torah that's yourself, because every second that you own that Sefer Torah is another mitzvah. He then comments that he doesn't really see this nowadays. He doesn't see anyone that when they're 13, they immediately get a Sefer Torah, so that's a possible reason to say that really the mitzvah is to write. Third nafkamina is when can you fulfill the mitzvah? So the Ber Yitzchak suggests that the only problem, can you fulfill a mitzvah with bishutfus? Can you fulfill a mitzvah with a partner? So the Ber Yitzchak writes that if you assume that you must own a Sefer Torah in its entirety, then you can't. But if you need to write a Sefer Torah, then it should be fine. As the Gemara says, you can even write one letter, so you should be able to write one letter here, one letter there. A lot of people could do it together. And the last nafkamina brings us back to the beginning of the shirim. In the middle of the shir, we were talking about whether women are chayiv in Talmud Torah. So the Shagas Aryeh brings this question here. He says, are women obligated to write a Sefer Torah? Seems logical. If they're chayiv in Limud Torah, they should be chayiv in writing a Sefer Torah also, which is crazy because you don't necessarily hear that women take part of this mitzvah. But he seems to say that according to Bnei Rishon, the mitzvah is not a function of the mitzvah to learn. So women are obligated, because just as women are obligated to learn the Torah, that's relevant to them. However, and I'm going to end with this, the Beis HaLevi disagrees. He says that if one assumes that the mitzvah is to write a Sefer Torah, then you can't say that women are chayav. Why? Because it's beferish Shulchan Aruch. A woman is not allowed to write a Sefer Torah. It's going to be possible. So if a woman, even though they're obligated in Talmud Torah, and even if you go according to the fact that you have to write a Sefer Torah in order to learn from it, if a woman can't write a Sefer Torah because it's going to be puzzle, even if she pays someone to write the Sefer Torah, it's also going to be a puzzle. I mean, it's also not going to be fulfill the mitzvah for her. So therefore, he explains that the only way that a woman could possibly be Yossi this mitzvah is if the way you look at the halacha is a mitzvah to own a Sefer Torah. And that would be the fourth nafkamina. And I'm going to end here. Thank you all.
So women can't write a Sefer Torah, is that what you're saying?
I didn't look it up, but